We're testing this mic. Okay, I think it's working now. So thank you guys all for coming. If you don't recognize me because you haven't seen me since I was a little girl, I am Dr. Novak's daughter, Stephanie. So, and if you see a little one who looks kind of like me running around, or maybe a couple of them, that would be my children. So thank you all so much for coming to celebrate my dad. He was a special guy, and I'm glad he could touch so many lives. And I know that there's plenty of people that wanted to be here today that couldn't, so if you see all the cameras around, it's because we're live streaming to Budapest, to Florida, to Chicago, and to all sorts of different places. So there were lots of people that my dad touched, and they wanted to be a part of this as well. So we're going to start off with the reading of the obituary, and then we're going to share some memories of my dad. We'll probably open it up if anyone else wants to say something, and then we have a special toast for my dad. He would want you all to be very drunk. So I hope that you wait around for that. And then of course we have a little video tribute as well that I would hope you would stick around for. Some embarrassing pictures I found of my father that I would love to share. All right, thank you.
Some of the music that you've been listening to has been Stephanie and Luke singing, and so they've done quite a bit of music. Dr. Steve Novak passed away April 3rd, 2021 in Indio, California. Steve was born June 11th, 1949 in Budapest, Hungary to Nicholas and Emmy Novak. An only child, Steve and his parents immigrated to the United States during the Hungarian Revolution of the 1950s. Dr. Novak made use of every opportunity presented to him in the United States, graduating high school in Niles Township, Illinois, Northwestern College in Evanston, Illinois. Dr. Novak served in the medical field as a commander in the U.S. Navy and served his country while touring the world aboard several aircraft carriers, submarines, and other Navy vessels. After his military service ended, Dr. Novak remained in the reserves and began to work as an emergency physician, eventually moving to El Paso, Texas, then San Diego, California, and ultimately settling in Palm Desert, California. In 1986, Dr. Novak opened his own medical facility, Novak Urgent Care, which now resides on Highway 111 in Indio, California, and has become well-respected and distinguished clinic that remains in operation to this day. In 1986, Steve married Mira Bergstrom, and together they had one daughter, Stephanie Ann. In recent years, Steve added a surgery center to the clinic, furthering his lifelong passion as both a surgeon and healer. Many of Dr. Novak's employees worked alongside him for decades, including his treasured assistants, Martha Bates, Nellie Cordova, and Stella Esquez, to name just a few. Steve was preceded in death by his parents, Nicholas and Emmy Novak, Fine, and by his stepfather, Michael Carency. Steve is survived by his daughter, Stephanie Ann Novak, and grandchildren, Kira and Hunter. Steve has another grandchild, Emmy Lou, due in July, as well as a stepbrother, Dr. George Mickey Ferenczi. Steve leaves behind many other extended family members all over the world, including his cousin, Claire Frerick, or her husband, Steve Frerick, and their children. In addition to his family, Dr. Novak's passion was medicine, and he continued to be excited about new techniques, technologies, and medical science up until his death. Dr. Novak loved to travel, spent his life seeing the world. Some of his favorite hobbies were skiing and scuba diving. When his family were unable to accompany him, Dr. Novak sent home souvenirs, photos, postcards, and cassette tapes detailing his adventures. His home is filled with mementos of a life well lived. As an avid skier, Steve loved taking his daughter with him to ski destinations around the world. Even in ill health, Steve insisted on accompanying his daughter and grandchildren to amusement parks, museums, and science exhibits. Steve chose to instill in his descendants a passion for knowledge, exploration, and helping his fellow man.
For all those who speak Hungarian, we will miss you, Nagyon szeretlek. Apu szeretlek.
In lieu of the flowers and stuff, if you would like to give a donation in Dr. Novak's name to the Elie Wiesel Foundation in remembrance of the Holocaust and those who suffered.
Hello, everyone I think knows me around here. I see a lot of familiar faces, but some of you it's been several years. But I'm Michael Mann. I've known Steve for about 22 years. I live here in the Valley and pretty much helped with the, I don't know, some of you saw me there in the building helping him with whatever. You can call me for pretty much anything. But a little speech, nothing long. I won't take too long. And I really encourage anyone to come up and say a couple words. There's not too many people here, so it's I think we can probably get quite a few. So, thanks everyone for coming in. Thank everyone for attending Dr. Novak's memorial. I really appreciate it. My name is Michael Mann. And Steve was a different type of person. You really needed to get to know him to really appreciate him. I think a lot of you can understand that. He had a big heart, and if you didn't take the time to know him, you probably wouldn't know. I am sure everyone here knows what I mean. As a doctor, he took care of pretty much my entire family and always cared deeply about their health. If it was during business hours or after, he was always available for us. He loved being a doctor. He would have talked all the time about medical breakthroughs. I could tell you he was excited, and I would pretend I knew what he was talking about, even though I had no idea what he was talking about. But it felt good when he talked. He had someone to talk to, and who knows what he was saying, but I agreed. What was amazing about him is no matter how sick he was, he would always try to be at the clinic. He'd be limping, he'd be passing kidney stones, he would be 102 fever, he'd be there for you guys and for us. I'm sure everyone can contest to that. He cares so much about everyone. As a friend, we took several trips, too many stories to tell. Vegas for New Year's, Big Sky for skiing and snowmobiling, Grand Canyon. One trip in particular was to Whistler, Canada for a skiing trip. It was just me and him for 5 days. And I tell you, Steve was not going to sit and relax for a second. He was the first one in line at 0700 for the ski lift and the last one to come off the slopes. He basically followed ski patrol down the hill because he didn't want to miss any skiing time whatsoever. He wasn't going to waste anything, anytime. He did that every day, and even though I was 26 years younger, he outlasted me. I would lose him so I could sneak off to the lodge, and that isn't a joke. He was a lot of fun once you got him away. Steve and his mom, Emmy, would come over to our house every Christmas for several years now, and they loved Claudia's cooking, so Steve wouldn't miss too many of our events at our house. He had a great time. I know when Emmy passed, it was a big deal for him, for all of us. So. We'll miss you.
So this is Kira. She is the oldest grandchild. She has decided she wanted to say a few words about my dad. In Hungarian, we used to call him Night Papa. So if you hear that reference, that's what he was called.
Before I begin, I wanted to say that I may not have the best speech, but I still mean what I say. Here we are all gathered today to celebrate the memory of a man most of you knew as Steve Novak. I knew him as Nine Papa. For those of you who don't know, that's Grandpa in Hungarian. Nine Papa was a man who cared about a lot of people and things. For a fact, I know he cared about all of us a lot. He cared about me and my siblings. He cared so much that he broke his hip just trying to get us a Christmas present and still got it to us. If he was here for a single minute, I'd tell him that a lot of people cared about him and that I love him more than he'll ever know. I regret I wasn't able to do some things with him, but I do cherish the time we did spend together. My Papa was a great man, and wherever he is, I hope he's having a good time, because if anyone deserves it, it's him.
All right, I'm with Mike. I encourage other people to get up here because you don't know how much your legs can shake until you stand up here in front of everybody. It's incredibly nerve-wracking. All right, so this one's mine, and I might cry a little bit, so I'll do my best. We forgot tissues up here, Mike. Okay. Well, like I said, I wanted to thank all of you for coming here today. I think that he would be very pleased to see all of your faces here. And I know my grandma would be very happy that there were tablecloths. So first and foremost, I'm very proud of my father. The lives he touched and the people he helped. You are all here today because my father affected your life in some way or another. And I recognize that everyone has their own experience with my dad, their own special story or moment. And as Mike said, I would encourage if you have something that you would want to share, that you would share with us. But as his only daughter, I will perhaps share a few of mine with you, and perhaps you'll find yourself surprised to learn a different side of Dr. Novak that you never knew. As there was so much more to this man than his lab coat and his stethoscope might have led you to believe. So to most everyone who knew him, he was Dr. or Dr. Novak. Sometimes he would forget and he would call me, and instead of saying, "Hey, it's your dad," he'd be like, "This is Dr. Novak." And I'd say, "Yes, Daddy, I know who you are." But fathers and daughters have special relationships, and from the moment a daughter is born, there's kind of a innate sense to protect your little girl from anyone and everyone, and a strong desire to kind of give her everything she wants. So for better or worse than the chidings of the mother. So my father was a very good mixture of both, but looking back, I was probably a little bit spoiled comparatively. My dad used to call me his little Snooki, and he spared no expense in taking me to the zoo or to SeaWorld or to Disneyland or even just the playground every chance he could, which, considering how often he worked in the clinic, is pretty impressive. I spent a lot of time in the clinic with him, trying to see if his desk still had stickers in it. But he would hoist me up on his shoulders, and so I could see animals or shows better. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to ice skate, how to swim, how to ski, so I could join him on his trips. He was always doing something. Every day after seeing patients, he would come home and I would run to the door to greet him. Talks at the supper table were always probably about his most interesting clinic case. So whether it be a unique suture or a surgery or how someone fractured half their body from falling off of a roof, you had better have a strong stomach if you were sitting at our table. So when I would go to greet my dad at work, I would witness some of his more serious cases, and somebody would have a cut open forehead or something, and something more internal was bothering him. Well, my dad was the guy to see for that. So, and like I said, I was far more interested in drawing pictures on his desk than at the moment than hearing about the latest case. But when you have a doctor for a dad who's seen those crazy traumas in his lifetime, getting an ouchie as a little girl is never really as big of a deal as you would think it should be. My dad's favorite line, and you might have heard him say it, "This is peanuts." Yeah, this is peanuts, it's nothing. So he would remind me, of course, that my cutter scrape was nothing compared to what it could have been. And I would live to see another day. Even when I had to have my tonsils out at 16, I was terrified because, they have to put you under. And there my dad was again. He's like, it's gonna be fine, it's peanuts. And I'm like, easy for you to say, you're not getting, it's easy when you're not the one getting it done. But, having a dad who was a surgeon kind of has its perks, I suppose. I recall being 5 years old, and as I said, my dad would take me ice skating. And I fell on the ice and cut my chin open. And, he decided that, he would take me to the hospital to where he worked. And basically, he knew that he could suture me up better than anybody else. So he'd be damned if he was going to let another person touch me. And sure enough, he did a great job. And there it was. And, how many people can say that they had their dad sew them up and then walk home? Well, and speaking of no one else knowing sutures better than him, one of my favorite stories, I recall a weekend where, I called my dad to check in with him. And, like always, hey, Daddy, how's your weekend been so far? How are you doing? He's like, oh, well, I just got out of surgery. Now, if you have a surgeon for a dad, this is no unusual statement. I mean, in fact, it's pretty typical, right? You call your dad, he's just got out of a procedure. However, it took me about 30 seconds to realize that I was calling my dad on a Sunday. My dad didn't work on a Sunday. So I said, Dad, what do you mean you just got out of surgery? You don't work today, it's Sunday. Well, lo and behold, my dad, being the incredible active man that he was doing sit-ups the day before and realized that he had a hernia that, of course, needed to be operated. So like any normal person, he scheduled the procedure for the very next day on himself. And he just had one of his assistants come in and do the operation for him and, put some local anesthesia. And sure enough, he sutured himself up himself because after all, no one can do it better than my dad. So sure enough, he was awake a few hours. Oh yeah, I just got out of surgery. I'm fine, thanks. So that was one of my favorites. My dad always supported me, and he always supported those around him. His heart was big, and his intentions were pure. And there's no denying he could be a little rough around the edges and very loud when he was upset. So for many of you who don't know that my dad immigrated here when he was from Hungary with his family in 1956. So if you ever thought you saw him yelling in some made-up language, don't worry, he was probably just cussing you out in Hungarian. Now, you never wanted to be a passenger in the seat of my dad's car. I have a feeling he had something to do with the saying about a lead foot that was invented, because he would do about 90 miles down a freeway and also in a parking lot. So, nevertheless, though, he did have an eclectic choice of music. So, there was anything from the 50s and 60s and Elvis, or intense disco, or even classical Beethoven. You never know what you could get if you got in the car with him. So, or of course, don't forget there was lots of medical lectures on cassette. So when you have a 2-hour drive from San Diego to Palm Springs and you're 8, those were the highlight of the day. Now, my dad was incredibly smart, though. He prided himself on all the knowledge he could soak up, not just different facets of medicine, but he seemed to devour everything like an encyclopedia, from science, history, geography, and if you were ever around him, he might be asking you like a certain question, like, didn't you know why Beethoven wrote this sonata, or which Greek god was named for this or that? And then he would stare at you as you looked at him dumbfounded, and he would wittily give you this answer mockingly and say, well, then of course, why don't you know these things? I know these things. But my dad loved all of that. He loved National Geographic and used to collect them. If you've ever been to his house and saw this giant collection that he had, there are books that we actually used to read together. Admittedly, I would get bored rather quickly as a child and preferred just to look at the pictures. If you've ever seen National Geographic and read all the details, there's quite a few, but the pictures are pretty cool. But my dad was determined to teach me something every single time we cracked open a magazine. And it's ironic what we miss as we get older, because I would love nothing more than to sit down with my dad today and read a National Geographic together. If you knew my dad, as Mike was saying, you knew how much he liked to move. When he wasn't trying to repair the human body, he spent his time working out, swimming. He was an avid skier, scuba diver, water sports, and he may have had a lot of patients in his clinic, but he did not have a lot of patience. As a man, my dad was always ready for the next thing, usually before anyone else was ready. My grandma and I would often walk together at amusement parks or just going out to supper or whatever, and my dad was always one step ahead of us. We grew very fond of learning to stare at the back of his head. He always searched forward, always wanting to get to the next place or the next thing, as if it might disappear before he could check it out. Dad was always pushing me to work harder, be stronger, run faster, or walk up some giant hill that even your car would likely struggle to reach the top, if only to say that we did that. And Georgette knows exactly what hill I'm talking about. There's a giant hill that he just had to walk up that even the cars struggled to get up, but he wanted to say, look what we did. And after you did that, you're like, never again. So after many years of battling Crohn's disease, it took renal failure and pancreatic issues to finally slow him down long enough to walk beside us. And it was a weird feeling to finally be able to keep up with my dad. And it was in that moment I realized that I didn't want to. I wanted him to be raring and ready to go forever. My dad was a fighter and had a stronger pain tolerance than anyone I've ever met. I saw him at his weakest moments asking God why, or calling out for his mom and dad in heaven to help him through one more day. Yet even at his lowest, Dad clung to life as long as he could and refused to give up or admit that he couldn't fight anymore. He still had so many plans. Plans for the clinic, plans to find true love, plans to create a new medicine that would revolutionize the world. He had plans with his grandchildren. He wanted to take Kira skiing, go ice skating with Hunter, Thea clothes shopping at Emmy Lou, teach her how to swim before she could walk. If I've learned one thing about my life though, or just life in general, is that things don't always go according to plan. I know my dad did not plan to leave everyone this soon, but I do know that he was strong for us until the end, because after all, this was peanuts. There's so much that I'll miss about my dad, like being able to call him up or ask for advice, or planning our next get-togethers. But a lot of things I will miss are so much smaller than that. The sound of his voice, his outrageous and obnoxious laugh, if you guys ever heard him laugh. The little tidbits of information that he would always try to share. And often I would wonder why anyone would ever want to know, like why a specific jellyfish eats what it does, or why Mozart wrote a specific concerto. Perhaps the most significant and rather strange thing I would miss would be his scent. If you knew my dad, he would always wear Eternity cologne. But for some reason, he has a special scent and it mixed well, and it was just dad's smell to me. And it would linger on his sweatshirts or his lab coats, and when he would give me a hug, and there was always a comfort, familiarity there that I just can't express, but I'll miss it. I imagine each and every one of you have your own memories and stories of my father, and each one of them being special and unique in their own way. And it's through these memories and the stories that my dad will live on, and forever in our minds and our hearts. And through his grandchildren will his legacy go on to be remembered for all of time. So, thank you all again for coming. Martha, it's your turn to get up here and be embarrassed. And then pretty soon we're gonna do our toast.
Hello, my name is Martha. I worked with Dr. Novak for about 20 years, and well, everything that had to be said about Dr. Novak has already been said, but my memory with him, it was just coming in every morning, his talks. He was a very smart man, and he taught me quite a bit. I mean, a lot, everything I know, in the medical field and more. I remember walking in the mornings and coming in, and he was like, let's make some coffee, okay? Let's make some coffee, and he would tell me, okay, I gotta quiz you. And he would always be quizzing me, and I'm like, what? I don't know that. Like, you need to know this, you need to know this. And that helped me. At first I was like, oh, how annoying, but later on I'm like, okay, yeah, he's teaching me. And I love that about him. Dr. Novak was so sweet. To me, he was like a family member. I'm gonna miss him so much. And I know it's very, very hard because coming in the morning to the clinic every day, him not being there is really, really hard for me. You know, being with somebody every day for so long, it just, it's just learn to love somebody and be with them every day. I don't know how to explain this, but it's really hard for me not seeing him anymore. And I'm pretty sure, we're all gonna miss him. But I have a lot of memories with him that is gonna keep him alive in my heart. Thank you for coming. Yeah, he's a great officer.
All right, you guys, now we would invite you all to enjoy a toast to my dad. One of his favorite drinks was tequila sunrise. So, please enjoy a glass on him. We'll all take a glass and then we will do a nice toast. As I said, he would want to make sure that everyone was properly inebriated. All right, I think everyone should have a glass now of something that looks like tequila sunrise. Oh, we're waiting for this table over here. And then if you are thinking about it after we do our toast, like I said, we will open it up to anyone else who would like to come up and say a few words before the slideshow if you would like. Hope they didn't run out of alcohol or tequila in the back. Someone's got the worm back there in there. We're almost there. Okay.
Three more. It's right above the
Just the cousins out of the state.
I guess some artists give it a rest. So one night he decided to try to do it, which he did with ginger, Coca-Cola.
All right, now I think we finally got the last of it. They had to run to the liquor store. All right, everyone who would raise their glass, please. In honor of a great man, Dr. Steve Novak, as he would always say, salud. Salud. Was anyone brave enough to come up here and say a few words? They say speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Well, I'll leave this here for a few minutes, and then if nobody comes up, then we will start the slideshow.
Yeah, they might be. I'll start crying.
All right. I'd say we just start.
You guys were awesome. I'll start crying. I can't. I'll look like black bar mascara. I barely made it through you guys' speeches. I'm getting emotional in my old age.
All right, if you guys would direct your attention to the screen in the corner of the room, we're going to do a little bit of a slideshow.
Oh, wait, we have somebody who's going to say a few words.
Oh, perfect. Yes. Yeah, if you would like to share, then we would absolutely, the family would want to hear from you. So please do share. If you are
You can have mine.
needing to finish your drink to gather the strength, why, please do. And please introduce yourself so the people watching and everybody can kind of know who you are, since we don't all know each other. But we did all know Steve. Thank you.
My name's Grace Duke, and I was his patient for 20 years. And the reason I'm here is because of Dr. Novak's care. A lot of times when I first started, my doctor had passed away and I didn't know who to go to. So I was referred to go to Dr. Novak because it was urgent. And from that point on, I was an urgent care patient because I was always, for some reason or another, I was a nurse and I always had different situations that I needed urgent care. So Dr. Novak's office was always there for me because at times he closed at 5 o'clock. I got off late. I got off work late, and he always attended me. So I could say that urgent care, Dr. Novak's urgent care clinic, was a blessing to me because he was a good doctor and he treated me very well. And he was a very nice gentleman. And I just wanted to let you know.
Are you sitting where you can see the screen? Hunter, can you see the screen? You might want to watch where you started.
So if any of you would like to be able to speak, we would love to be able to have you guys speak. I know the family would want to see that. But if you guys do want to speak, just kind of form a line here. That way, anybody that wants to say something doesn't feel like they have to come all the way back up, you know, at the very beginning. So if you would like to say something, we'll just maybe have the mic open here for a few minutes, and then the family would love to hear from you. Thanks.
He brought the tray around.
So hello, I'm Kurt Spurgeon, and I am a chiropractic physician. I worked next door to Dr. Novak for 21 years. And we had many, many patients in common. And you know, the one thing that I'll always remember about Dr. Novak was how much his patients really loved him. They loved his straightforward manner, his caring attitude, no-nonsense approach to, you know, giving people the care that they deserved and that they needed. So I had a ton of respect for the man, and I was, you know, just very saddened by the loss of such a wonderful person and somebody who had been a friend of mine and a colleague for a very long time. And, so I just wanted to say that he will definitely be missed, not just by myself, but by so many patients that I know that loved him for what he gave to them, which was that caring attention and attitude of always doing the best for his patients. So, thank you.
Another round to the side.
Well, I don't know if everybody knows me, but I recognize a lot of faces here. I just want to say, I'm going to miss Dr. Novak. I started with him in 1991. When I started, he said, I remember getting out of school and I was so excited to finish my schooling. And he goes, forget everything you learned here. I'm going to teach you. And so I had to stop everything. What do you do? What you learned is nothing. I go, I'm going to teach you how to do it. And that's how I started. And like Martha says, when we had quizzes all the time, quizzes like all of a sudden there was no patient or something, and okay, we're going to have a quiz. So then we'll all sit in the back, little lounge, and stay there and ask all kinds of questions. And you have to be right, or else, like you said, you would say something. He was a good doctor. Bedside manners, sometimes you had to, you know. But he was a great doctor, and he wasn't afraid to venture and learn more. He was always trying to learn more about anything. Whenever he went away to a conference, he would come back and we'd go to his room and he'd tell me what he learned, or if he went to a plastic surgery thing, he would show me the pictures and everything. We used to like, I wanted to help him with, you know, what Martha eventually took over doing with him and the surgery. But as you know, I had an accident and I had to retire. I miss him. I'm gonna miss him terribly. And I don't know what else to say. I still think about it every day, and I just can't believe it. You know, it's something I don't know how to explain. But thank you, and like I said, I recognize some of you, but not all of you. But thank you so much.